And we're back. Beyond is gone, but he will be back in a future episode. So don't worry, folks. Um, we're going to just continue on and we're going to just talk about picks at 19, picks at 31, who works, who doesn't work, and kind of go from there. My question is going to start with 19 because that's going to be something that informs a lot of the draft. I think if you pick someone who is a high floor prospect, whatever position it is, at 19, I think you can take a swing at number 31. We do know that the Raptors do have to do some extra homework and have been because they have to fill up their pipeline for the G League. They're probably going to come in with, I think it's three two-way players, or is it two-way players that you can sign? I Either way, those spots are going to be now filled with new guys. I think it was what DJ Carton, um, I think Moji,
Mamaduki,
yeah.
yeah, and
Um,
yeah,
there's
Gosh,
someone
they
else that I'm
changed
forgetting.
so much too. I think it is three now. They
It
changed
is
so
three.
much.
So,
Yeah.
but we also had a lot of flux on our G League team. So we basically wiped out everyone, because Marquise Noel was one, Dylan Harper was one, and then I think at one point Porter was one. So we had three, and then they're all gone for different reasons and stuff like that. Harper obviously with the rib issue, and I think the other one got hurt as well. So we're not going to necessarily ask you about all of that, but just so the audience is primed, there is going to be multiple guys coming in to this team beyond who we actually select. So I'm going to let Coach, because I know Coach has at least a couple guys that he's been wanting to ask about, and we haven't really covered on this. And so, Coach, I'm assuming you're going to start with Bub, but I'll let you be the judge of who you want to talk about first at 19.
alrighty. So I was actually watching one of the No Ceilings podcasts. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and they were comparing Mr. Carlton Bub Carrington, I think, to Isaiah Collier. I think that was the TV show. TV show. Oh boy, podcast. But Tyler, I want to get your thoughts on Bub Carrington. He's a name that we continue to hear. I He looks like he's a talented player. I know he's young. I think he's still 18, but what are your thoughts on Carrington and where do you think he's going to fall in the draft? What range do you think?
I like him a lot. Wasn't a big time recruit. Kind of wasn't even really on the radar as a serious name. And I'm not trying to mean that as a slander, but it wasn't just a big name for preseason. You weren't really buzzing about him. And then he started the year out. He had a triple double, and everyone's like, "Who the heck is Carlton Carrington at Pittsburgh?" Then he started getting some eyes on him, and he's really young, 6'5", looked thin on tape, and then he just measured in at the combine, and he's around like 195. I was like, that's a good number because I just thought it was going to be lower. I think he's got like a 6'8" wingspan, but he's really shifty. He's raw. He's got a lot of talent though for being raw right now. Like I like the foundation of tools to work with. Like I think they're further along than what you'd be wanting. Like right now, like there's still a lot of upside, but it'd be something very fun for a developmental staff to be like kind of grooming. He took some good strides defensively. I thought in the beginning of the year it was kind of a little over the place, then took some good strides. The offense, I think, he loves this mid-range shot. He loves getting to it. It's like the elbow. He goes back and forth, and he just uses his size well to kind of break people down and pick you apart. His shot selection for me needs to just get a little better. He takes my least favorite shot in basketball, which is 1 foot on the 3-point line, like crossing over, where I'm like, you just made it the toughest shot possible to get 2 points. So it drives me
It's the
nuts.
Demar shot.
Yes,
Oh
it's the
yeah,
DeMar
yeah.
shot, and it drives me nuts because it's like, well, even if you're an unbelievable shooter, like just take a foot back and hit a 3-pointer. So he that just drives me crazy. But he's got some good feel too around the basket. It's just a lot of good stuff that you're like. I've said it for a while on the NoCeilings podcast with my co-host Tyler Metcalf. I'd be like, if I'm swinging and I want to get excited about a swing, that would be one of the ones I'd go get. I'd even try to go get, or if he's still on the board, I'd be attacking that. I think he's gonna be a top 20 pick. That's kind of what I've heard is people are like, he's not getting past 20. Now there's buzz, he's getting late lottery buzz. So it's like, well, that if you take those two worlds, it sounds like it's going to be in the Raptors range. So you never know, but I think teams are intrigued and he's having a good process and, 6'5" and young with good shiftiness. That's going to get teams very excited.
I think shot creation is so key today, especially if you watch the playoffs as well. It just looks like he has that potential skill set to do that in the NBA. I do have one other prospect I want to ask you about as well. And the Raptors have had him in for a workout, possibly two, but I definitely know of one. And it's one of her G League Ignite guys, Tyler Smith. I watch him. It's like offensively, he's got some capabilities for sure. Good shot form, it looks like to me. But I like the length at 6'8", 6'10", whatever he's at. But what are your thoughts on Tyler Smith?
I feel like he's cooled a little bit lately. Because, and I just heard some workouts I've heard a little bit of everything. So I'm trying to kind of get some more solid details, but I think he's cooled a little bit, slipped a little bit, but it's tough because I'm hearing some stuff and I'm like, well, he's probably, a lot of guys aren't good for workouts. Like they're better when they're playing in flow of the game. And that's when they can really blossom. I know one thing, every time I saw or watched an Ignite game, I just was like, Tyler Smith knows where to get his stuff. Like he plays the right way. He knows when it's like, I'm wide open, take the shot with confidence. He works to get good looks and he's efficient and effective in limited minutes. Like he put up good numbers and then you look and you're like, he only played 22 minutes. Like so he can get in a rotation early on off the bench and give you a boost. I think there's some, I don't mean this as a bad way. I just think he's a little bit of a specialist right now, where it's just like he's a floor spacer. You get him in with the size to be a pick and pop weapon. He showed some developments with his rim protection. I just think there's still some areas in between all of that to kind of keep working with. But at some point in this draft, I definitely think if you're getting the 6'10", 6'11" with a good shot from outside, pick and pop weapon that still has upside. Like it's very fun. And that's, I think the late teens and early 20s that's where you get excited about those because they could pay off in a big way.
Yeah. It seems to me like his straight line driving was, adequate enough to, maybe see some upside there in terms of starting to build out some more things. I do think that there might be a ceiling there in terms of the overall, like I'm not expecting him to suddenly, turn into, the equivalent of what Matas was doing, like right. I'm not expecting that, but I think that, there might be a little bit more upside to his game, which is interesting. I did see you had a film study with him. I don't know if it was you specifically. I can't remember that, but I know one of the guys on NoCeilings had a film study with him way back. I watched this it seems like months ago, but that was interesting. So
yeah, that was Corey. No, it might be someone that has a high, like a ceiling that can get reached quicker. But like you look back, like guys with size that can shoot, if you can have a high percentage, you're going to play. They're going to keep giving you chances to play for a long time. So if you could develop a little bit of more of that, like Tyler Smith there's a path in which he plays for a very long time. But I think he's cooled a little bit. I don't know if it's interviews or whatnot, but that's why this process is so fascinating, especially with a year like this, because there was a point in the year, I want to say middle of season, where people were like, Tyler Smith might be the best prospect on the Ignite right now. Like he was just playing fantastic. I think he was shooting mid 40s from downtown and rebounding, blocking shots, and playing his game. And I think that's where people were like, he's comfortable playing his role. And it was a role in which every NBA team's like, we need a guy like this. So he's going to be really interesting on draft night because there could be all this buzz about like, hey, he interviewed bad here. And it's like, he's got to interview good one place. And then that's the team that's going to draft him. So We'll see. But I like Tyler Smith. I just think might be in a specific range, but that's why the Raptors are just fascinating, because it's like they're right in the pickings for a lot of these guys. It could either be, if they want them, they can get them, or maybe they slip a little bit more. Like, he could be, I wouldn't be shocked if he's still there at 31 right now.
Yeah.
Which people be like, what? And I'm like, I would not be shocked right now if he's still there. And he won't be there for long, but he'll be there.
Yeah.
For me, that's actually where I have him.
Yeah.
Where I would pick him if I were the Raptors. So, Coach, you were gonna.
I got one more for you, Tyler, and they're 19
you
range.
can ask, no problem.
And you've spoken to us a little bit about it before, but not too much. And we, the three of us, Kenyon and Beyond, we love him. We think that we'd be perfectly happy if we had him. That's Tristan de Silva. The guy just knows how to play. He's just a good value pick probably at 19. I don't care about the age, if you're 22 or 23. You don't have to teach him how to shoot. I don't think you have to teach him how to defend. There's a lot you just don't have to teach. And a team like ours right now, I don't think we need too many projects. It's okay to take a guy who's ready to play now. So Tristan de Silva, your thoughts?
Yeah, that's my guy.
I thought he was.
That's my guy. I love him. It's, I doing this for like scouting the draft forever. I understand why upside's very attractive. Like, I get it when you're like fan base, you're like, oh, he has the potential. He has the potential. But then I get to a point where I'm a team like Toronto. Like, let's just say I was there. I'd be like, De Silva's going to play for a long time for us. Like, other guys might have more upside, but I don't know what this guy is. Like, I'm looking at Tristan de Silva and I'm saying he shoots the crap out of it. He's tough. I know some people are like, is he soft? And I'm like, it's not what I've heard. Like, and that's not what I've seen. He's tough. He's got positional versatility, and he's around 6'9". And he's a high feel guy. He knows how to play with teammates. He knows how to get everyone the ball. Just makes a lot of decisions. You're like, my goodness. Devin Carter and him were some of my favorite films I've watched this whole year, because when I watched Tristan de Silva's, I was like, this is boring because it's so good. It's just like everything he does, you're just like, this is a joy to watch. So there's like teams I would like. I did a Thunder podcast and I was like, I would absolutely love if they took him at 12, Tristan de Silva, if he could be on the board for the Raptors still at 19.
He plays so patiently. Like,
yes,
you'll have him with the ball in the high post, for example, with guys cutting, and he just like, there's just certain. You don't see many guys play with that type of poise coming into the draft,
right?
And it's something that just popped for me. I told you my favorite guy from last year. It was Kyshawn George. I'm not always looking for the big flash. I'm looking for a guy that's like textbook perfect, right, in a way, and he fits that. Now with Kaysen, I will say there's some upside there that people disrespected, but that's a whole conversation for another day, where a lot of people thought he couldn't shoot coming in. I tried to tell people like he gonna be able to shoot, but in terms of De Silva, I mean, it seems like he just does a little bit of everything really well, and then he's also just so patient, and it just like has that high floor as in terms of the skill. I think his brother plays internationally as well. I can't remember if his brother was on the G League for some time. I think he was, but I have to double check.
I think he played at Stanford for like 4 years. Like, it's just every box. Like, I'm right there with you when it comes to when I'm evaluating. If I'm ever talking about a prospect and I'm trying to like convince myself that the weakness is glaring, or if people keep pointing out something and I'm like, is that really that big of a deal to not have him higher on your board? Like Kaysen Wallace as a high school prospect, people were like, can he shoot it? And then in the middle of the year at Kentucky, he was like shooting the crap out of it. And people were like, I'm like, well, he's doing what you want him to do. So what's going on here? I think the guys that do a lot of stuff really well, but someone's like, hey, they don't do anything elite. It's like, the guys that do stuff really well and can do a lot of it play at the NBA for 15 years. So I just think De Silva is like one of those, like, I would be just I'd sleep like a baby because I'd be like, we got a guy that's probably not going to be a superstar, but he might be a star in his role. And I think those guys are so valuable for organizations like the Raptors, where I'm not trying to make you guys mad. You're just trying to get stability. Like at this point with the draft, you'd love to be hitting a double. Like you don't need to swing for the fences. You just would like to be like, we got a good pick at 19. Now at 31, we can get, a little creative and maybe you swing for some upside.
I mean, I'd like to hit a single even and just get on base.
Yeah, a single, but that's what I'm saying. Like you just want to take a step forward.
Yes.
And I think De Silva is a big step forward and not a leap, but it's a nice step forward.
Yeah, my thing is I have Scotty Barnes and I have RJ Barrett. Who could I put in between that fits their skill set?
Exactly.
And to me in this draft, it's Tristan de Silva because he does things well, i.e. shoot the ball, get his own shot. Then maybe they just don't do quite as well. I just see him as that's a near perfect fit of what you're going to get from this draft. That's just my opinion as well. Not just on his ability, but also what's his fit on the team. I know people say, well, you always take the best talent. I agree, but I think fit at some point does have a little bit of a role in terms of draft picks as well. Just a bit.
Absolutely. And I think he fits. I was talking with my co-host for Metcalf on the NoCeilings podcast. We were just talking off the air, and he's just like, he fits everywhere. Like he's like, every team wants this, and I was like, that's exactly. And he's the one guy when I was asking around to different scouts and stuff, and he's the one guy this year. Everyone kept saying, I like him, and I was like, that speaks very loudly now. And then I'd asked recently, as I was just kind of talking to someone like about, hey, what's the buzz going on about a scout in the league? And it was a lot of like not positive buzz. And I was like, anyone? And he goes, oh yeah, De Silva shot the crap out of it at a workout. Like just was like, I was blown away. Like, so like those are the fun ones that are just kind of quiet buzz that you're like, oh, he that's a good thing. So I love him. He knows how to play. He knows how to play the right way. And I think those are the guys that, like Jaime Jaquez was another guy that I heard a lot of good stuff. If you watch the tape, there's a lot of promising stuff that he does good. And now he looks like a great piece for the Heat. I think De Silva could be a version of that this year. And I'd love for him to end up the Raptors.
Do you see him being there at 19, or do you think he's gone around, say, 15?
No, it's tough this year because I could see him going 12th. I could see him going 20th. And there's like 10 guys. I could say that for about like 5 picks. It's kind of crazy. It's just a wild range because like with this year, there's so many guys that the range is always usually kind of slimmed down with some of these prospects. This year, it's like he could go 8th or 20th. And you could say that about a ton of guys. I think De Silva makes a lot of sense like for a lot of teams. So it's also like if you're Toronto, do you go get him? Do you try to get up to 15 and go get him because you love him and he's perfect to, like Coach said, be alongside RJ Barrett and Scotty, and he's the connecting piece you're missing to kind of make everything flow. Those are the guys. Like a Case and Wallace last year, I was like, just go get him. De Silva this year, like I felt the same way about Keegan Murray. I was just like, dude can play, go get him.
My son.
I'm just saying, like
I share the name of his dad.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I just think De Silva's people are trying to look somewhere like, oh, well, he could be better, and it's like, well, this guy's good already. Go get him. So I think he could be there for the Raptors. It would not surprise me because that's the range where things get really crazy. And if Edie's on the board and the team swings for Edie or Khalil Ware goes or Collier goes, then all of a sudden it's like, well, De Silva's fallen to someone, and Orlando's 18, right?
I believe so. I'm just pulling it.
I'm gonna be proud if I pulled it off.
Lakers are 17. I do know that.
Lakers are 17.
Orlando's
Magic
right
are
before
18.
us. Hopefully they do us a
That
solid
would be the
again.
scary one.
Who's Jet Howard this year? And that's no offense to Jet Howard. I just think Jet Howard was surprised he got selected. I thought
Right.
it was going to be Grady.
They
And
already have
suddenly,
Franz.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
We get like Franz.
Um,
Does Jeff Weltman do Masai one more solid? Lifelong Raptor.
well, and that's the I think this year's draft we're all fascinated to see what happens after the top 5, and then
Yes.
you get into ranges on the board where you're like, wow, that's going to be a really fun run with you guys, the Magic, like the Lakers. Obviously, people want to see what happens, and so I could see a world in which I could see him being on the board still, and I'll be like, whew, that was a robbery for them.
The slope of the gradient of the talent between say 5 to 20 even it's a lot more lower of a slope than it would be in other drafts. So most of the times it'd be the degree of the slope would be much there'd be a more steeper drop off. Even our coach actually had a interview recently basically saying, you know, he called it an even draft. At least that's what it translated to because it was in Serbian, and he basically outlined that from the top 5 to top to 20, there's not much different in how he has assessed the level of talent and how the front office has assessed the level of talent as well. So I think that's interesting. We might just skip out on the 31 type stuff for this one because we've already talked about Tyler Smith a bit, and I also want to respect this Tyler's time, but we should get into there's 3 other names, and we'll just mention them right off rip, and then get into it, and then we'll get out of here. Which is, Jalen Tyson, I believe, Kyshawn George, and Jacoby Walter, who. Jacoby Walter is a very interesting one because he was ranked very highly and he has kind of slid back and then kind of pushed forward again and then slid back a little. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster for him. Now, I'm going to start with Coach on this one because I feel like we've switched roles now. So so I'm going to give Coach the question about Kyshawn first, just because I know how you feel about Tyson already. I'm just wondering how you feel about Kyshawn George, and we'll ask Tyler kind of the same thing.
I mean, I like his talent. 6'8", is at 40% from three. Looks like a connective piece in an offense. I heard a comparison. He's like Kyle Anderson, who can shoot a little bit, who has actually nice form. Which to me, that sounds like a player who can do a little bit of everything. I do kind of wonder though the pace. To me, he looks like he can kind of get to his spots, but at times just like he's a bit slow. Maybe that's just me from what I've been looking at. I'm not sure. But I do like the potential versatility. I do like the size at 6'8". And he's been someone certainly I've seen him as maybe 19 or 20, and I've seen him in the 30s. That's just like Tyler said, and Kenyon has said, it's just this draft. It's flat, even, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, I don't have I just see him being in one of those ranges, quite frankly.
He's when you watch those guys on tape and you're like, they look slow. How do they keep getting to the basket? Or why can't people stop him? He's one of those guys when I'm watching him, I'm like, why can't people stop him? But I think he's really good at using he creates space with his steps. Like there's guys that are short stride. He can get somewhere. He can cover some ground. That Miami team was one of my least favorite teams to watch in like the last 3 years. They were just a lot of me guys, like wanting to get their own, and then he had to kind of figure out how to be a freshman that was all of a sudden getting more minutes with that team. So I think it was kind of tough, but he's got a beautiful shot, and he's big, and he's got a lot of potential to be an offensive weapon. It's tough watching in that situation because you're like, is this more along, or does this have a little bit more rawness to more of a project? I think he's another guy that probably is going to be in the top 20. So we're throwing a lot of names in that conversation. So someone's going to be that's why we keep saying, it's a good year to be picking in the outside the lottery or outside the top 10 because there's going to be names falling down. You got your choice to really pick a nice talent. So I like him. It makes another guy that, we just talked about, De Silva, shooter. Well, Kyshawn's got upside and he can shoot. So he'd be a really interesting option for them.
Is there a favorite between the names that I've mentioned, the Walter, Kyshawn, and then Kyshawn, and then Tyson? Like, do you have a for I should specify for the Raptors?
Yeah, I was gonna say, if I'm in for Toronto,
To me, Walter
um,
is lesser of my favorite, just because of what we kind of have as a shooting guard already that we're trying to develop. I'm a big fan of Grady, and I want him to get as many minutes as possible next year. And then obviously we don't know the looming Gary Trent question, so that's kind of where we're at in terms of a depth chart type thing.
yeah, it's funny with the Raptors because I'm always like, I don't know why I can't. My mind won't comprehend that Barrett's on the Raptors. Like that,
Yeah.
I just keep thinking he's on the Knicks somehow, and then I'm like, no, he got traded to Toronto. Like, why can't you process this? So like, I like, and I liked that trade for them, but I like what they're doing because they're trying to build out a little bit. I still think Grady's going to be a guy that takes a very nice step second year, very nice step third year. Like I
He's been
understood
in
why
the
he
lab.
struggled out of the gate. Yeah, he's gonna be fine. A lot of those guys, like those, they struggle their rookie year because they're like, what the heck? And then you got to figure out how to. Also, look, did someone tinker with his shot? I saw like a video when he was in the G League, and I was like, what the heck are you doing
There's
touching Grady
there's
Dick's shot?
there's been conversations about that. We'll
Oh
leave.
gosh.
There was a question asked, and the interview was never aired.
Okay, great.
So
Um, so yeah, I
Craziness.
think yeah, I was like, what are you doing? So I think he's gonna be fine. He'll be really good this year. There's a lot of guys I'm excited about taking a big step.
yeah.
Getting back to your question, sorry, just excited. Now I'm trying to think.
So yeah,
Tyson, I don't know if Tyson would be at the top of my board for this one because I just think that the guy needs the ball more. I would say like Kyshawn. Gosh, Jacoby's year
I
has
asked
been
this on
so
purpose.
weird. No, it's been so weird. Jacoby. Who was the other name? Because it wasn't De Silva. Who was the other name?
So it was George, Tyson, and Walter. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So yeah,
I probably would say Jacoby would be sec. No, Jacoby. Yeah, Jacoby would be second. I'd put Kyshawn George first, and then Tyson third because I think Jacoby would be too good a value. And if he has talent, it's just it was weird year, and you watch his like his high school stuff was fine because he played a little bit more off, and then his before that, there's some EYBL stuff where he has the ball in his hands, and you're like, this dude's a beast. He's a monster. So it was just kind of a weird Baylor year, but I'm also like my hypothetical is like does Baylor ask too much of guards? Like Keontae,
Yeah.
I loved seeing him in person. I had a little one this year, so I couldn't go out to Baylor to see someone, or I couldn't go scout a lot of in games this year. But Jacoby, I felt like if he has a great rookie year, I'm going to be like, okay, I can't trust Scott Drew ever again because these guys are good, and he just asked too much of them. But he's been having a weird process. I feel like he could be an option at 19 right now.
yeah. I mean, and I'll just say this just to end this portion. I hope the best for all of these guys. I hope that all of them land in spots that help them to succeed ultimately. And just become better people, along the way. 'Cause that's what you hope for every day. Coach, do you have any final questions?
Tyler, it's weird. I forget he's in this draft. And I know that I've seen him in earlier the year mocked as maybe a top 10 talent. And now it's like I feel like I might see him at 12. I might see him at 28, or I might see him at 30 or 31. I'm not sure, but I remember you had said once about how Baylor uses their top players having to do a lot, and you kind of wonder if he settles into a role, will he blossom in a sense, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I, I for sure think if he bought into a role, you could really find something.
Mm.
Because he could shoot. I thought going into this process he was going to be one of those guys that someone would text me and be like, Jacoby shot the crap out of it, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm not surprised, but I haven't gotten anything to build momentum off of. So that's why I've been kind of like, okay, so he's probably going to name that kind of maybe slips a little bit because everybody else is climbing. So I'll be interested. I think that if it gets to a certain point, I would be like, okay, someone should jump all over this because the return is worth the swing.
Right.
And Jacoby has talent, but it's just like we talked about, like maybe he is not a potential number one guy. Maybe you kind of calm down a little bit and put him alongside some other guys that are more, advanced, and he can continue to build off of that and have something to go. Like if you had Jacoby coming off the bench or in your rotation, you'd probably be very intrigued by that if you could be shooting consistently and playing good defense, but just needs some more consistency. He'd have some great games this year and then just disappear for 3 games. You're like,
Yeah.
what's going on? And then all of a sudden he'd have 2 huge games and drop 30, and you're like, he dropped 8 the next game and was 4 for 15. You're like, what's going on? So I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Well, other than that, I think first of all, I hope that your Celtics do well. You know, but at the same time, I hope that they don't do well.
Yeah,
Because
I was like, that one sounded right. That one sounded legit. So.
For
So-
what it's worth, Tyler, I do think your Celtics are going to win. I don't think they're going to lose 4 straight to Dallas.
No, I don't either. I just can't. If they lose the next one, I might have a panic attack because I'm gonna be like, great, game 6 in Dallas. I have to sweat this out. It'd be cool for them to win at home. I did see this morning that the last time they won it, they were up 3-0, lost. Or wait, was it? Or whatever. I saw something that the last time they won the title, they were up 3-0 and lost game 4. Maybe that was a playoff series because I was like, they didn't sweep the Lakers, right?
No.
No. What the heck was that tweet about? So that just tells you where I'm at right now with the draft cycle. Maybe it was a playoff series on that way. But yeah, Dallas is going to be tough. Dallas is, whenever you got Luka or Kyrie, those guys can shift things in a hurry. So,
especially when they play with pace.
Yeah, and if Boston starts out cold again, I'm going to be like, oh boy, stop playing with your own food. Go get to the basket. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming and joining us. We will definitely be having you back on if you want to come back on in the future, especially next year with it being the year that it's going to be in terms of the draft. And the Raptors having their pick, actually. There wouldn't be much to talk about if we didn't have our pick. So, I'm excited to talk about next year's draft. I'm excited to see what happens for this year's draft. For the folks at home, Beyond and I are probably going to go live. I don't know the exact moment. We're not going to go live throughout the draft. We're going to be going live near to the end of the first day when when we're able to. We're not going to go live during the draft because we kind of like to spend that time just with hanging out. Sometimes you want to live in the moment, not just be perpetually online. So wherever you are, enjoy the draft. What I will say, if someone asked a good question, the guys that are in the green room, usually someone's left hanging. What happens? Do they have to stay there with their suit overnight? Do they have cots? What happens? I don't know, Tyler. You tell me.
No idea. That would be a nightmare. I'd be like, do I have to go get a new suit? Like, I think you go one day
Wardrobe
and then you're
change.
like, yeah. I think they give the guys option like you can come back, and some guys might be like, no, but I'd be like, screw it, I'm going back. I'm gonna walk. But
Right.
someone's gonna get left this year. I mean, I don't know. maybe they don't get left. It's a very interesting green room list. There was some names I was like, okay, but we'll see. It's going to be crazy this year. It's going to be nuts.
And for Raptors fans or Canadian fans, Zach Edey is a green room invite, but he is staying at home. He decided that he is going to spend that time with his family. So just keep that in mind that, if you are a green room invite, you don't have to go. So, yeah. With that being said, it's been Basketball Rewind. Like, comment, subscribe. Again, thank you to our guest. I will leave all of those links in the description down below. NoCeilings, go subscribe. They have good content on YouTube. I'm not sure if you guys are I think you guys are a podcast as well. But I do know that you also have written work. And I'm going to encourage people, whether it's The Athletic, whether it's NoCeilings, pick something and read it. People do not read enough today. Read. Okay, please. It's important. And I do read some of your NoCeilings work. So yeah, I encourage people to go check those links down below. Tyler, is there anything that you want to plug?
No, that was fantastic. Thank you. Oh, I will say you have a draft guide coming out for NoCeilings soon. So NoCeilingsNBA.com. We work very hard every year on that. It's a digital download. So Raptor fans want to read in more depth about their guys, so you go check it out. So thank you guys for having me. I always have a blast on this one.
Absolutely. And I think that NoCeilings is free, if I'm not mistaken. So, you have no excuse but to check out a couple articles, people. So, yeah. Coach, any plugs by you?
Nope. Tyler, come on back after the draft.
Sounds
Easy.
good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just let me know and I'm there.
We might have to talk after, that exhibition game between, our countries.
Yeah, as long as the Celtics win the finals, I'll come on after the draft. There you guys. See, now I just stuck through it back.
Gotcha. I see how
Beyond will like that.
All right. With that being said, everyone take care and peace.